I'll just start. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be taking you through some books to help you get out of a reading slump. So before I get into anything, I want to update you on the book that I'm currently reading. So this week I finished reading Siege and Storm, which is the second book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy. Now I am reading Ruin and Rising, which is the third book. I'm almost done, to be honest. I think there's much to go, so it will probably be finished tonight. I'm filming this on Wednesday, so by the time this goes up on Sunday I'll probably be on a different book entirely, but that's what I'm reading at the moment. So when I thought of books that would help to get you out of a reading slump, obviously I went through some of the ones that helped me get out of my reading slumps. So I have a list of about 5 or 6 books that helped me get out of my reading slump. I'm going to take you through some of them. There's a bunch of different genres and things like that, so hopefully there will be one here that will help you. Let's go! So the first book that came to mind for me personally when I'm thinking about like getting out of a reading slump was The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. I read this one last year, I think about the start of the year, and I finished it in like 4 days, which at the time was really fast for me. This is a mystery thriller novel. So the plot of this one, like I said, it's a mystery thriller. We follow along with a character who wakes up in a body that he doesn't recognise in a place that he doesn't know, and he is informed that he has 7 days to solve the murder of Evelyn Hardcastle. If he doesn't solve the murder, then his memory basically gets wiped and he has to go through the whole thing again. He has to solve it to break out of the cycle that he's in. Like I said, he has 7 days to solve the murder. Each day he lives through another character in the same day, so he gets to experience the day through different perspectives, piece things together that way, and then try and work out what happened. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was really good. I think it was really well structured. I think that the characters were really fun. They were kind of people that you were rooting for, which in a sort of mystery thriller like this you want to be able to root for your characters. I don't think it went on too long. I don't think it dragged. I think it had the perfect amount of hint dropping throughout it, and I thought I had it all figured out and got to like the last couple of chapters and was just completely mind blown. So that's something that I really loved about this, was it led me into a false sense of security because I thought I knew it was going to happen, and then it kind of flipped all on its head and I was just completely shocked. So really enjoyed that one. Highly recommend. So the next book on my list is one that you will probably hear me talk about till the end of my days. It's one that I talk about all the time. It's one that I love so much. I have a tattoo dedicated to this series because it means so much to me, and I will never stop recommending it. So this is just the beginning of a very long list of times I'm going to recommend it. But that is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I have nothing bad to say about this book because it has such a special place in my heart. It is the first in a series. There are 3 books in this series. When I first read this book, I picked it up and I started reading it, and the first chapter it just didn't really do anything for me, and I was like a bit unimpressed. And then I heard Hannah over on A Clockwork Reader talking about it, and she kind of explained a bit more of the story, and I was hooked. I went back to it and I persevered with it. Not that it needed much perseverance. I think I got about 4 chapters in and that was me. I was sold, and I'm so glad that I did because it's become probably my favourite series of all time. So this one is a high fantasy novel. It follows sort of 3 parallel worlds, each with a different relationship with magic. You have a grey London, which is our London as we know it. You have a red London, which is a London where magic is celebrated and kind of used day to day. And then you have White London, which is kind of a place where magic is seen as something to be controlled, and the more you can control it, the more powerful that you are. This mysterious person on the front is our character Kel. He's kind of the main character of this book, and he is one of the last blood magicians left, so it's kind of his job to travel between Londons and take messages back and forth between whoever is running the country at that time. He also tends to smuggle things back and forth for a price, which leads him into quite a bit of trouble, and yeah, that's all I'll say on it because I don't want to spoil it too much. Like I said, there are 2 more books after this, but for a taste of high fantasy, you have royalty, magic, all that stuff wrapped into this lovely little book. Like I said, it's super special and it has such a special place in my heart. I will probably be rereading it at some point because I miss these characters so much. And I'm pretty sure Victoria Schwab on her Instagram was talking about possibly continuing this series and getting like a 4th, 5th, 6th book. So definitely a good time to get into the series so that you don't have to catch up on 5 books. So the next one I want to talk about is The Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This is a kind of dark academia, magic, ghosts, secret societies of Yale University type fantasy. It's written by Leigh Bardugo, so the same person that wrote the Grishaverse. She is responsible for this one. This is completely out with Grishaverse, it's a completely different storyline, nothing to do with that at all, so you don't need to have read any of those books to understand this one. This one I think is a bit more pointed towards adults. It does have a lot of adult content, so I would trigger warning for this one. It does talk about sort of sexual assault, drug misuse, feelings of suicide and self-harm. It's discussed quite heavily throughout the book, but in a way that is done sensitively. In this one, we follow along with Alex Stern, who has been invited to attend Yale University as a member of one of their secret societies. So the society that she works for is the Ninth House, and it's their job to kind of keep all the other ones in order and just keep an eye on them and make sure that they're doing what they should do and they're all playing fair. Obviously, things go wrong, things happen, nothing ever really goes to plan, but it's definitely one that got me out of reading Slump. It's one that I think about a lot, and I can't wait for the continuation of this series because there is going to be a continuation at some point. I know Leigh Bardugo's been really busy obviously with the Netflix show and everything that's coming out, but this is one that she said that she's working on. So yeah, hopefully we'll see more of this soon. I really enjoyed it. I don't have a bad word to say about it. I wish I could read it for the first time again because it just blew me away the first time I read it. But for ending a reading slump, definitely would recommend that one. So the next one on my list is actually one that I don't have. It's one that I read on my phone on the Scribed app, but it's one that is just as good all the same, and that is Sour Candy by Kealan Patrick Burke. So Kealan Patrick Burke is primarily, I think, a horror writer. He does a lot of like suspense, thriller, horror kind of stories. This one's quite a short one, so again, for getting you out of a reading slump, it's quite good because it's short, concise, it's not dragging on for ages. I think it's near enough about 100 pages. For some reason I want to say 97, but I'm not entirely sure. But it's really not a long one, so it's done with quite quickly, but it still packs a punch. Like the title suggests, there is a lot to do with Sour Candy. The main character of the story is kind of flung into a relationship with this mysterious child that seems to appear out of nowhere, and alters the very reality of his life. It's a really interesting exploration of how his psyche kind of deals with that situation. It's really interesting to kind of be inside that character's head and see how these things affect him. I really enjoyed it. I think I read it in like a day because it was so short, but it really did kickstart my motivation to go back and read some more books. So the next book on my list is one that I finished fairly recently. I think I finished it in like January or February, towards the start of February maybe, and that is The Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. So like I said before, this is another novel in the Grishaverse. So these characters, as far as I know, will be appearing in the Netflix series that's coming up soon, April, I think. This duology takes place about 2 or 3 years after the Shadow and Bone trilogy, so it's a bit of a fast forward from the original trilogy that we have. I read this one first. I didn't experience many issues with that. I think she did a good job of establishing the universe and the world in this one the same way that she did with the Shadow and Bone. I didn't really experience many gaps in my knowledge with this. I think it was a good one for me to get started as well because it does have that kind of air of mystery. So if you didn't know, this one is about a group of criminals and misfits living in the city of Ketterdam, which is in Kirch in the Grisha universe, and they kind of try to pull off the impossible heist that has never been done before. and it's really good to kind of see it unfold. I love the Ocean's 8 film, and the back of this is literally described as the Ocean's films meets Game of Thrones. It's very in that vein. I think that's a very good description of it, because it's very much seeing how these characters all fit into place, and you're kind of wondering whether they're actually going to be able to do it before they all kill each other. So it's a really fun book. It's really fun interaction. I love these characters. For me, I've not finished Ruin and Rising yet, but this is the better one, which I know is a bit of a controversial opinion, but for me, the Six of Crows Duology takes the cake. I think it is much better than Shadow and Bone. Shadow and Bone's still good, but I really enjoyed this. This one got me out of a reading slump. It was a really fun read. It was really effortless as well. I think the way that Leigh Bardugo writes, it's so easy just to slot yourself into that universe. I will say as well, this one is in a third-person narrative versus the Shadow and Bone trilogy, which is in a first-person narrative. I prefer third-person. So if that kind of put you off from the Shadow and Bone trilogy, it's still worth a try because it is third-person. So that brings me to the last book on my list. I know this has been a bit of a quick one, but I didn't want to drag it out as much as the last one. The last book on my list is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. Excuse my notes at the top. There's a lot of imagery in this book and I really loved most of it, so I wanted to make a note of it. This is the first book in the trilogy. I don't know the official name for the trilogy. Caraval, maybe. But this is the first book. I've only read the first one. I haven't read the other ones just yet. Again, this is a sort of fantasy concept. It's really fun. We follow along with two sisters who essentially get invited to one of the most exclusive carnival celebration type things to exist, and they sort of play along with the game of the Caraval, and yeah, get a bit more drawn into it than I'm sure they would imagine. The imagery in this book is stunning. The way that Stephanie Garber uses colour throughout this book is massive, and it really pays off. It creates such a beautiful world. You can see definitely a lot of the characters being in like a childlike state. It's really fun. There is a bit of mystery element to it, so you are trying to solve the problems as you go through, but in this super fun, magical world. I really can't wait to pick up the next one of this. Obviously my TBR pile is ridiculous. It's never ending, so I will get to it at some point. It is another series that I'm hoping to finish this year. I have like 50 series that I'm hoping to finish this year, so I say that I'm gonna finish it. No promises, because I don't know, but I will try. So that's it. That's all the books that I have on my list for today. I hope that you maybe are intrigued by at least a couple of these, and I've persuaded you to put some of them on your TBR, or given you some options for getting out of a reading slump, because there's nothing worse than being a reader and not wanting to read. It's torture. I hope this has helped at least a little bit. That's me done for today. Hopefully I'll be uploading again next week on Sunday, so feel free to subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on your notifications so you can see when I'm uploading. Like I said in my last video, you can follow me on Instagram at Kira the Bibliophile. I post books, I talk about books, pretty much the same, but more frequently. So yeah, I hope I'll see you all next week, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and goodbye!